Hello and welcome to the featured news for 1st July 2021. My name is Harsh Singh, and in this featured news we discuss with you private sector in clean energy in India. Now, first of all, we must understand what is clean energy. Now, clean energy is any type of energy which helps reduce the emission, right? Which helps reduce the emission. Now, it can be of two types. It could be renewable and it could be non-renewable as well, right? So, for example, renewable energy which is clean in nature could be wind, could be solar. However, non-renewable energy which is still clean, which is not producing any emissions. One good example is nuclear. So in terms of, see, nuclear waste is also produced, but if you're talking in terms of the emission, it is not producing emissions. So therefore, this is a clean based energy, right? So can you think of another combination in which we have a renewable energy, but not clean? We found that renewable energy are clean, right? Wind and solar. But is there a renewable energy which is not clean? Yes, we have. For example, burning wood. So when we burn wood in a sustainable manner, so that there is production of wood also in the forest, we keep burning and we keep having more production of the wood. Is it clean or not? It is not clean because there are emissions attached to it, right? However, since the wood is being replenished by production of new wood, so therefore it is renewable, right? So here we have understood an important difference between clean and renewable energy, right? They can be synonymous, but they need not be synonymous. Now, why is this article in news? It is in news because important private bodies have started to pledge clean energy sources for themselves. Now, Reliance Industries has said that by 2035, it will make the whole sector, the whole of its investment as net carbon zero. That means they will not be spending any amount of carbon emission effectively, right? A net carbon zero does not mean that they will not be producing carbon. That means they will be offsetting the production of carbon by either purchasing carbon, right? Carbon credits, or producing equal or even more amount of clean energy, right? How will they do it? They will do it by having gigafactories, 4 gigafactories at Gujarat, right? So how will they do it? They will have solar cell, batteries, fuel cell, green hydrogen modules, etc. production at Jamnagar in Gujarat. So this is what they have pledged, and that is why in news the investment will be as much as $10 billion, which amounts to around 75,000 crore rupees. Quite an amount for an industry to invest. Also, Adani Group has also pledged similar norms. Now, India wants to become the leader in the world in production of the renewable sources of energy, and therefore these companies are the ones which are going to pioneer it for the country, right? Right now, we just understood what is clean energy, which has been explained here again. Zero emission, and it could be derived from renewable sources, right? And another component of the clean energy is that it could be energy efficient as well, right? So energy inefficient products will not be as clean, right? So one good example is solar, and another good example is wind. See, the reason India is attempting to become a leader in this particular sector, renewable sector, is because India is a tropical country. Now, since India is a tropical country, India receives a good amount of insolation in the northern hemisphere, right? Incoming solar radiation. And because of direct insolation, most of the time, the place receives a lot of energy, solar energy, and therefore we can utilize this energy for the renewable solar energy production, right? Capture and production. Also, because this place gets heated, right? And therefore, it is very much possible that winds will blow to moderate the effect of heat, right? And winds will blow, and therefore they will also rotate the wind turbines. So wind energy again in India, right? So these are important ways India is attempting to harness these kinds of renewable energy. Okay, now you can see some of the ways they can harness. One is energy efficiency, right? And then we have various kinds of energy like alternative fuel vehicles. We have discussed hydrogen cell at one point of time. Then we have geothermal heat pumps. That means geothermal, that means earth heating the water, earth heating and producing gas, and that's how we rotate the turbines. Solar, right? And then we have wind. hydropower, right? Hydropower, the use of water for energy generation, right? And then we have bioenergy, that means biomass. Using biomass we produce energy. So these are the kind of energy India is attempting to produce in clean energy forms. Okay, right. So we understood this part of the segment where we talk about the renewable and clean energy differences, right? Okay, now the present status of India is that India is attempting to have 175 gigawatt of production through clean energy sources. So let me show you a simple diagram here. Now in this diagram we clearly see that we want around 1 lakh megawatt of production through solar energy, 60,000 megawatt through wind, and then we have 10,000 through biomass and small hydro to contribute 5,000 megawatt, right? So this comes to 175 gigawatt in total by 2022, right? So 175, all this amounts to 175 gigawatt production through only clean sources, right? By 2022, India is also trying to achieve, although because of corona pandemic, the acceleration of this program has reduced. However, the impact is still being made. Now, the major reason, see, the energy is already there. We have to harness it. That is the interesting part. We already have incoming solar radiations and wind power and biomass. This is all being produced. All we need to do is harness them at their production places. So this is the most important part about it. The faster we are, the faster we will transit, right? So this is the present condition, and by 2030 also India has produced a target. By 2030, out of around 850 total gigawatt requirement, we are going to produce 450 gigawatt through clean sources. So out of 850, we'll produce around 450 through clean sources by 2030. And this is how the country is trying to achieve carbon neutrality around 2050. Okay. Now, why is this entry of new players, private players, an opportunity? See, they will get new markets. Why? Because this is a new kind of energy, and the earlier they enter the market, the earlier they will gain access to consumers who will use this kind of energy. We will put solar top panels, right? We'll use battery vehicles. The earlier they enter, the earlier profit they make, right? They lead the market. Brand enhancement. Now, this world belongs to those who are leading the way. They are branding themselves through clean, ethical norms, ethical ways, and being faster in adopting the best technology. So they will have an enhancement in their own value, right? Brand. And this is how companies are leading the way in the present world, right? Reducing vulnerability. Now, all the companies in India are vulnerable to shocks of the import of fuel, and therefore this vulnerability will be reduced if India is self-reliant, if these companies are self-reliant in energy production through Indian mechanism itself, right? So this is important. Limitations of the government. Now see, government is a small body, right? And it is not the one consuming all the energy. Private bodies are. So who should contribute? Private bodies. So this is a limitation of the government as well. It doesn't have the finance, it doesn't have resources, it doesn't have functionaries. So private players need to be roped in. See, this is important, right? Also in a country, we've known about the public debt. Just yesterday we studied in the feature article that our public debt has increased a lot. Even the union government and state governments included, and it is over 80% of GDP. So how can we expect the central government to contribute so much, right? So therefore private players have to come in, right? Now also it says global challenges need global solutions, right? These are not local challenges. So all the world, the technology has to be global, the solution has to be global, it is intercontinental, all the countries have to contribute, and all the sectors of economy have to contribute. It is not just the government which can contribute on it, right? Okay, so what are the challenges here? The challenges for private sector entry. Now see, once a policy transition is happening, once disruption is happening, disruption doesn't mean bad sense only, disruption also can be a positive disruption. So once disruption is happening, we need a clear policy, right? So we need a clear policy and clear target. And in these times when clear policy is not there, so we will not know where to invest. The markets won't know which direction to go. And therefore, because of this less clarity in market, right, there could be a vague signal to the investors. So this is one lack of enabling policies. We need clear framework for all the time in the future. So that this lacking of this clear framework is an issue. The second is the development risk, right? Now, what is the development risk? Now, we discussed this in one of the editorials. Very interesting. Now, carbon projects, all the carbon related projects, they are receiving less investment in India. right? In fact, the coal block allocation which had to be done, none of the foreign players bid for it. Why? Because they're all titled towards the renewable sector, and therefore all the coal related projects, even coal to gas conversion, coal to oil conversion, right, those which are promising cleaner ways of energy transition, yet they are not being sold in the market. So what happens to the employment in that sector? What happens to the infrastructure in that sector? So that gets reduced. So this is the development risk in the conventional sectors now, right? High cost means the cost of construction, the cost of incubation, the time in which the whole construction happens, and then when it starts to produce, this time lag, this is a high cost time for the company which is doing this act. Why? Because the equipments are very costly, because time taken is very costly, human resources involved is a lot, and they need profits, but it takes a while for the profit to come in, right? This is one important issue. Grid infrastructure. Now these solar and wind energy, these are not the continuous sources of energy. They will not be sun at night, they will not be wind at all the time, and therefore these are called as intermittent sources of energy. And because of this, the grid infrastructure cannot have continuous sources of energy, and this is where this is the shortcoming of renewable sources of energy, right? So how to move forward then? What to do? So first important thing is to have a long-term target. The government must place a policy design for long term. Very simple and easy and clear, right? And part of this has to be that it should be inclusive and transparent planning, right? If this is done, then private bodies will participate, they will compete, and they will outperform, right? And then we need to have flexibility of grid structure. Now this grid structure is very important. Why? Because see, solar photovoltaic cell standalone, there's something called as standalone, SPV, solar standalone solar photovoltaic cell. Now here it can be laid on a rooftop of a house, but it won't be able to be linked to a grid. If we want to link it to a grid, then we need to have a flexible grid structure where even if the energy is not provided by this particular solar rooftop, we have continuous sources of energy from other places also, right? So this is what is the idea of having a flexibility of grid structure, right? And local level awareness. That means we need to have the small retail investors, the small retail consumers also in the market, right? Because a huge population chunk will transit to this kind of energy. If we don't have them inside this kind of scheme, then it might not be a huge success in the country. So this is the requirement in India, right? These are the important things we need to do to make India transit into clean energy, right? So let us look at this question. What is clean energy? We have understood what is clean energy, right? Now lesser emissions, energy efficient, and renewable, right? So these are the components of it. Analyze the challenges and opportunities for clean energy production in India. Just like we discuss all the featured articles, you take 1 minute off right now, pause the video, and think about the challenges, think about the opportunities, think about what I spoke. After that, just have a look at the video, right? So you will be able to summarize in your own mind, and after that you have to quickly write the important points that I just mentioned, right? So first was the difference between clean and renewable energy, the ways, alternate mechanisms in which energy can be utilized in India, right? And after that we discussed why in news, because two important companies, Reliance and Adani, have pledged to make the whole organization as carbon neutral. Very, very important, right? Therefore they will need huge investments, right? Now, so what is the opportunity for the private sector? We spoke about the opportunity. Just keep noting the keywords: brand enhancement, new markets, right? Reduce risk, reduce vulnerability, limitations of the government, right? For example, the public debt is so much, right? Global solutions, right? So these are the challenges, and accordingly you can also look at the these are the opportunities. The challenges can be looked into, right? For example, the policy design is not such, grid infrastructure is an issue, right? And then we have various other issues like, what about the traditional setup already, right? The employment and the infrastructure in those setups, the high cost involved, right? And what is the way forward, like involving the local participation, having flexible grid infrastructure, right? Having a clear policy, long-term policy, and inclusive and transparent planning of the same, right? So just have an overview, note down the important points, and your feature article for clean energy is done. Thank you.